Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to another episode of Homeworld Mobile Ultimate Guides. Today we're going to explore officers. Now, plagued with bugs and quirks, officers can be quite confusing and counterintuitive, like miners being excellent early game gunners and medics working in laboratories. But with update 1.7, we got a slew of quality of life improvements and features, so let's take it down to the foundation and work our way up from that. Officers are used in Homeworld Mobile in a variety of positions to augment weapons, fabrication, refining, research, sensors, squads, escorts, and even on the bridge, we can get a mixture of abilities and passive buffs from the entire fleet. And also, since update 1.5, officers have played an important role on the starbases in their bridge and in their staff modules as well. So make sure to check out the video on the starbases that will have a little card up there, maybe. I don't know where it is. So first of all, how do we get officers? Well, pretty much everything we do gives us a small chance to get an officer, but I'll list through my favorites. The first up being a donation run. What you do is you just go to the system map, you find the system, you jump to it, and you're hoping that it has 5 donations in it. Though this is a good chance that you'll actually find this because we have both donations for relics and donations for each of the types of ore. So we can have not only multiple types, but we can have multiple of the same types. And it just leads to a pretty good chance. So what you do is you just go through this, collect each one. I'm going to cut this and it's going to speed it up. Thanks, Dan. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Zoom, 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 zoom. Zoom, 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 zoom. And I really wish the devs could actually fix this process. This is so annoying. All right, we didn't get any new officers with that. But let's... Sad. All right, so we didn't get any officers from that donation run, but we can keep doing it. We did get some resources from that, but let's look at how else we can get officers. Now, we can purchase name officers, and we'll talk a little bit more about what named officers mean directly in the market. And we'll see that I have a couple of these guys, but you can get the Sobin, Scimitar, a couple Sobins, and each one of these are going to have different perks. They're going to have different stats, and they might even have an active ability. And we'll go over what all those different parts and components of an officer are. But we'll see we also have some tokens. They were up here. So we have a daily token here, I believe. Yeah, this restocks in 11 hours. We have 4 of these daily tokens that you can purchase, and these are set weekly. So you can purchase up to 4 of those a week. And I believe that's all for this one. If we go to the prestige market, we'll be able to purchase, or the code market, we'll be able to purchase our legendary token for 120, and we only got 9 right now. And then we'll also have a fragment in the prestige market here. And purchase ADA, you can purchase here, just mining that you're spending actual money here. So don't fall into the rabbit hole of purchasing. But we'll also see with an event, we have a special event officer. This one's going to have generally a unique ability that isn't found randomly, at least yet. And we'll see that we have their stats here. He doesn't have a personal ability. He, I believe, is an engineer. Or he's a... Yeah, I believe he's an engineer. No, he's not an engineer. He's a scientist. And so we'll go over all the different abilities of officers and everything like this. But we're just going to kind of also look through here. We'll see that in my storage, in a container, I have some Kangasian cargo. So we'll see that there's a small chance to get, there's a 1% chance, so 1 in 100 to get a cryopod from a medium, and there's a 2% chance in massive. It's not massive. It's just large, major. In major loots, we'll see there's a 2% chance there for a high giant block there. Also, we'll see that in assignments, in this little yellow icon, this is going to be all of our side missions, I believe, and we'll see that we do get cryopods for super high level missions. So the regular ones, not so much, but we'll see that with the um, the missions that go into the tens usually. So mining procedures X, yeah. So we'll see that mining procedures, the last three are giving out cryopods, and I believe that these are rare cryopods usually. They might be uncommon and they get a little bit higher as we go up. But now we also have a officer academy. So we're not going to have one at this system. Let me jump to another system that will have it, and we can identify systems that will have officer academies with this hexagon symbol here. So if it has a shipyard and it has a requisitions office, it's also going to have meat grinder, the officer academy. And yeah, I'll go ahead and explain what we're going to do with officer academies here as we jump into it. So officer academies are going to give you a chance to take 5 regular officers and turn them into a better officer. It's random chance, so you can't put 5 miners in and get a miner out. It's random. Good luck. But it is kind of like pulling a slot machine a little bit. I like it. So you earn a bunch of officers, you turn them all into commons. You'll need at least 25 uncommon officers to turn into 1 rare officer, right? And then you'll need at least 25 of those. Oh man, that's a lot of officers. 25, 75, 125 to turn into an epic. And then that's a lot of officers that you need to turn into a legendary. So 5 to the 5th power. And I can actually do that with my calculator. 5 risen to the 5th. Let's use graphing calculator. 5 exponent. That's not right, but 500,000 officers for 1 legendary. Anyway, whatever. You'll get a couple skips through there by getting higher rarity officers. But we can click on it. We'll see that this officer exchange, this actually replaced the liaison requisitions. So if you need to find the liaison requisitions, you just have to go to this menu either through the office or the exchange, and then go to this tab to be able to get to this. So what we'll do here, there are some fixes coming for this, some features, some quality of life. But we'll see that assigned and legendary officers cannot be exchanged. So if they're equipped on my ship or on another ship somewhere else, they can't be exchanged. But we select this officer. One of the drawbacks here is it's not telling me what the ability is, but we can kind of see here that I get the ability. It shows me there, so just know that will get fixed eventually. I don't have any others that I want to. I don't want to just even accidentally do it, you know? Let's see how many commons I have. So this is a nice feature. Once you select, it only gives you what rarity that you have. So a lot of community members are asking for more options to select multiple officers in a scenario. Ooh, I might actually get to do a uncommon. No, I won't. So I want to get rid of any of those officers. So once we add this button will come here, then we'll get a rare officer. Just keep doing that until you get all legendaries, and you'll have a bridge that ends up like my Starbase. And now there's not going to be much of a barrier to access. One thing I do want to note here, that if you are doing commons or uncommons, make sure to level your uncommon officers to at least level 2 and your common officers to level 4. What this does is it's kind of like a net net gain in insignias. All right, so if you dismiss a level 1 officer, you get 5 insignias. Now, if you promote that same officer to level 2 and dismiss them, you'll get 10 insignias, right? Now, the cost to promote to level 2 is only 2 insignias, so you actually get 8 back in return. And this works all the way up to level 4 for common, where you end up getting, I think, 11 insignias back, more than you put into it. So you essentially dismiss a profit for 11, right? And I believe that uncommons are the same way, but you can only do it up to level 2, and then you get, I think, 6 insignias back, because it costs 4 to do the first level and 6 to do the second level. So don't do the second level, just upgrade to level 2 for uncommons. And so that means that every time you get a common officer, I level up to 4. As soon as I get 5 of those officers, toss them in exchange, level up, I get 100 insigs and a new officer. So win, win, win. Wish I got more credits, because I do spend a lot of credits, but I got a lot of credits to spend. So before we get into the variety of officers and their skills, let's look at the current officer slots available. So the first one pretty much up is in the internal is the bridge. This is going to be the only place that an operator class is able to put their ability. So in the bridge, we'll also have access to our entire crew management, and we'll see that under operators, we can have multiple different abilities, and those are not stackable. We can have multiple abilities on a bridge, but the same ability isn't going to matter. It's just going to take the highest level ability of a certain type, and then it's going to use that one, and the other one's going to be ignored. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. Like, for example, if you had this kinetics officer with damage H, right? I could put both of these kinetic officers and I'd get both of their passive skills, but I'd only get a single kinetic boost between the both of these officers. So if that makes sense, that makes sense. Good luck. Now, we can go back to the external modules here. We'll start off with the turret. So each turret's going to have its own seat, and the officer is going to apply just to that. Whereas the officers that were on the bridge apply to all of these weapons if they have a weapon stat. So we'll see that on my bridge here, I have 2 officer abilities that are pulsar, and these apply to all pulsars. So we can see that highlighted green. This means that it is most likely active. This system is buggy. There are certain places where officers necessarily don't work, like for example, hangars. Officers just don't even work in here. Don't put them there. There's no reason to. Officers in the engine. If I have an engineer, right, that has a speed boost and a time boost, like this one, she's in the Starbase engine tech, like this one. We'll see that one ability is gray, or one buff is grayed out and one is green. So just be aware of that some officers may have abilities that maybe don't actually fit in their position. Now, if we put this on the bridge, both of those abilities would apply to all of the fabricators and the engine in the fleet. It just says flagship engine speed, but this is not going to improve escort speed, for example. And we also here have the sensors array. Now this position is also a little bit bugged. There are a couple officers that are supposed to work here but don't necessarily. But this increases the flagship range, which is the blue bubble on the starship in the sensors manager. Now this is not to be confused with this yellow line or brown line or whatever they want to call it. This is the targeting line. This is the line that if an enemy passes, I can shoot it. Right, the blue line should be when I can see it, but there's actually some bugs here, and I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but we're just going to continue on. Also, in my internals menu, I have fabrication, so each fab and refinery, but not my shipyard, has an officer slot. Refining, same thing. Research, I have a research officer here, and that's going to be it for where officers can fit in my ship. If we go to fleet configuration, we'll see that each escort is going to have 1 officer. Squads are going to get their own officers for each squad, and all the fleets are going to have all of their own respectives. So we can see this fleet here is set to essentially be my mining fleet, and all of them are mined with miners, so that when I put a collector on here and I go collecting, all's good, man. And let's take a brief over to the Starbase. I am at my Starbase, so we'll see that this guy has a miner and my buffing. My Alma's buffed. So in the Starbase, we'll see that we also have Starbase management. We have a staff. Boom! Look at that gold bridge. I love it. So this is going to be what applies to just our Starbase. This isn't going to actually apply to our fleet at all. So we move into the fabrication. We'll see that each one of these fabs has. Oh man, I just picked my notes. We'll go back to that. And so we have our in each one of our fabricators, we have officer slots as well. If you have refining and laboratory, those are going to go there, as well as the Starbase staffed modules. Now this is actually gets pretty complex on how to staff up these and level this up. So make sure to check out the video that I had linked before for the Starbases. And finally, onto the officers. So let's actually break into what one of these officers are. We'll go ahead and talk about Safari Jahasi. All right. So first of all, we can see that they have a level. This is the one user action control that we can actually do for officers. Besides their placement, we can level them up. So go to an officer that isn't completely leveled up. We'll see that if I have enough insignias and if I have enough credits, this green button will be highlighted. Let's see. I think this other one, yeah, is grayed out and is red, indicating that I do not have enough T2 insignias. I never have enough T2 insignias to level up this officer. With update 1.7, we also got this favorite ability, and this favorite ability allows us to mark this officer to be in a position that's above all of my other gunners. So we'll see that I have this little star. Now he is there. I remove this. I go back. He is no longer at the top of my list. I believe that there are two setting options for this. In the player profile, we click our level, and we go to settings, and we scroll down, and we scroll down a little bit more, but not too much. And we have the favorite officer sorting. Shows in its new category, shows in front of all the officers, and no changes. I have no idea why they put no changes for favoriting officers, but yeah, so cool. That's available, and you can do that, which is really nice. It's nice for I particularly have my miners starred so that I can always bring these guys up. Oh, did I say no change? Whoopsie. Oh, this might actually be. So this is because I have those officers favorited on my phone, which I normally play on. Those officers aren't favorited here, and that's actually kind of interesting because the settings that are in your device stay on your device. It's device local. It's not stored on a server somewhere. So those settings, I've actually had to change a lot of graphical settings, which is really nice because if I have a nice computer and I have great settings, or if I have a lower device that's not capable, those settings I don't have to constantly change. So that's nice job, developers. Thank you. I don't know if they actually meant to do that, but it's probably a bug. It'll get fixed at some point. Now, officers are mostly completely random, except for the officers that are named. So this Paragon Martera, there's no differentiation between officers that are named, except for this having a description, right? It's really interesting. You don't really notice it, but it's not in any other officers. Even legendaries, even officers that are. This was an interesting. This medic officer has this. They're not named because they are all completely random, but they essentially are named. Yeah, so that's interesting. I wish they made a little bit more differentiation because some of these officers are random, but some of them are not, and you can't really tell unless you know that they are not officers. Um, and I'm looking through my notes here. Oh, there's 5 levels of officers, rarities. So not only do they have 40 levels, which if you level them up 1 through 9, it'll buff their skills. And then if you level them up to level 10, they get the chance to either expand their buff or get a secondary buff. Now, operators, on the other hand, if you level them up to 10, they'll increase their pulsar burst or whatever ability that they actually have, and the cooldown will change. Or they get the chance to get one of these. So they can either have 2 passive buffs or an ability and a passive buff. But they obviously can't have 2 abilities because that just makes sense. And they can have no abilities. They can just have a high level ability. They can have no passive buffs. They can just have a high level ability. And then there's 5 rarities that go with it. So common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. Um, Unlike ships, which only currently have 4 levels of rarities, and even the modules, weapons. Now, the rarity in officer dictates the starting perk levels and ultimately the cost of promoting an officer, right? So, if I have 2 engineers, I was actually looking for operators. If I have 2 operators that have the same ability, she's level 10, 10. Okay. Well, he's level 10. So you'll see that this is upgraded to level 2, right? I get a cooldown in addition to it. And it's increased by 0.78. But we'll see that for this ion, he's level 1. I'm only getting a 0.39 cooldown. I'm not really getting that significant of a buff, but a buff. Both, I don't even have any lower. I've been grinding all of my officers, as you can tell. Nobody that's useless or is allowed on my bridge anymore. um, so yeah, the only thing that rarity affects for these officers is their starting ability. We can see that this one's leveled up all the way to 4. I'm literally only getting a second faster cooldown time. So that's not really what you level up operators for. You level up operators for the chance to get a secondary ability like this, a secondary perk like that. So I've already talked about leveling a little bit, but let's go ahead and take a look at this. See, this officer is going to require another 5 insignias to level up to level 5. But this is what I was talking about earlier. If you level up with level 4 and then they go to my discharge, you'll see that it's going to give me 20. So if I actually go through, I don't have any common officers, but I can go get one. We'll actually show you. All right. I'll retrieve both. Open all. Alright, so I got a common and another common. Cool. Perfect. Go to my bridge. New officers. We'll see that it costs 2 insignia. If I discharge them right now, I get 5 back, right? So haven't spent anything on this officer, but we'll see that it's going to cost credits to promote. Now it's going to cost 3. So I've spent 2. Now I've spent 5, and I can spend another additional 4 for a total of 9. So I've spent 9 insignias on this officer. Now when I discharge, boom, I'm getting 20 back. Yes. No, I don't want to discharge this officer. Why? Because I'm going to send him through the meat grinder. And then I'll do the same thing to this. For an uncommon officer, level up to level 2, you'll see that it costs 4 insignias to level up to level 2, and you get 10 back, so you get 6 net gain. Woo! Alright, now here is the rah. Officers are expensive to upgrade. You'll see that the commons and uncommons, it was a difference, it was double, right? I don't think I have any uncommon level 1. Alright, I don't think I have any rare level 1s. I've been using that meat grinder. Good. Alright, so we'll see that it's going to cost 10 to get a rare. So it went from 2 to 4 to 10. So the scaling is actually gets pretty wild. From 2 to 4 to 10 to 16 in SIGs. And then for legendaries, I have a ton. 32 and 6, so it's doubling. Oh, that's brutal. And as these officers get higher, we'll see that this one is going to cost 176 T2 in 6 to get to level 11. And there's actually a chart, so I will put that chart up there. Woo! That's a lot of numbers. I hate that many numbers. That's a bug. That should be fixed. There's no way that a legendary officer should take so long to level up. Because even in my storage right now, I have items. Because it's not just about how many insigs it takes to get to that top level, right? It's how much that top level costs. It's how much insigs throughout the entire raid it costs. So it's like 6,400 T4 insigs, 3,200 T2 3 insigs, 1,600 T2 insigs, and 800 T1 insigs to get to level 40 for a legendary, and that's just astronomical. That's just crazy. Did I really spend all my T4? Pause. All right, so let's dive back into this a little bit more for the officer's stats. So let's talk about what all these different things actually do. Each officer is going to have a varying amount of stats, and some classes are going to tend towards higher individual stats than others. For example, all of my scientists have really high mind. So 174 compared, and I mean, once you level them up, they get really high, like 366. And that I'll talk about where those actually apply to, but that's going to be higher than, let's say, my quartermasters, for example, that have a higher physical. Where even my gunners, they're not going to have a very high physical stat, which buffs weapons, whereas my miners actually do have high physical stats and buff weapons. So 162. So with physical officers, we'll see a boost. So let's actually just go through each one of these skills. With officers high in a physical rating, we'll see a boost in hull and armor damage for kinetic, ion, and pulsar weapons, as well as escorts, and a mining yield bonus in collectors and controllers. So that means that this physical is going to not only apply to how well your collectors and controllers mine ore, but their passive buff is also additionally going to buff on top of that. So weapons work the same way. If a weapons officer has a high physical, which they generally don't have high physicals, it's going to apply a little bit towards just general weapons. That weapon's hull and armor damage. So officers with a high mind stat, like our scientists down here, these officers are going to buff our fabrication, refineries, and laboratories. And then officers with a high aerospace skill are going to boost a lot of systems in different ways, mainly extending the range of missiles and repair turrets. They're boosting speeds and accelerations in engines, and amplifying scan strength and sensors array, including hull and armor damage in strike craft. Now, it's interesting here. I want to say that the number is 0.05% per stat. So an officer of 200 mind is essentially going to be as good as 10% fab reduction. And so 200, so 100 is going to be about 5%, 200 is about 10%, 300 is 15%. So we'll see that if we do level up common miners, they outclass gunners, even at higher end gunners. Let's see. So some of these high level miners, 337, so that's going to be 18%, 19% um, armor damage, armor and hull damage, versus a gunner like this who's doing 16% plus 5, plus 2.5. So really doing 18%. So at a low level, that miner is definitely outclassing this guy, but we'll see that once I've leveled this up to 19 or 20, that now with 140 physical plus 22, this guy is wrecking the cannon, wrecking the miners with the cannons. So that's going to be our physical, mind, and aerospace stats and how they apply to all the different parts. And let's move on to these perks. Um, so these perks are passive and they're special to each class. So we'll see that weapons, I have weapons range, and please, for the love of God, devs, please, 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 give me some kind of indication that this is an ion officer or a pulsar officer versus this also being an ion or a pulsar officer. Please, just change it. Like, just give me a little pulsar burst, something, star, I don't care. Just not the same icon for both. Rant over. All right, so we'll see that gunners are going to have weapons range, and they're going to have specific weapons range. So this one's going to be kinetics or mass drivers. These are going to be missiles, and we got ions and pulsars with the same icon. Oh, I'm not mad about it. I'm not mad about it. I'm not bad about it. But as we level them up, so each chance they level up to level 10, 20, 30, or 40, they get the chance to split. Some of these are absolutely terrible, but we'll see for my pilots. Where are my pilots? Where are my pilots at? We'll see for pilots. Boom, I got some great splits in these guys. Hull and hull damage, hull and speed, damage H and damage armor and hull. Yeah, that guy's just gonna go on my bridge if I find a replacement for him in the Starbase of a carrier. Like that's a great skill. I love that. Let's see if this guy splits that way, but probably not. I'll just end up getting a split like this, which is damage and agility for fighters. Like that sucks. Um, Sometimes you get the cost and time split, great. Sometimes you'll get cost and refinery, which thankfully I haven't gotten. And then, I mean, it's just a matter of chance that these guys are going to split, but they seem to split at a higher rate than other officers. So just be aware of that. There's not really much use to one skill, time versus production. Either way. So we've kind of seen that our comms officer is going to have like different scanning perks. We have scanning range and critical scan for chance for my officers. Engineers are going to be, they've actually added hull escort and flagship hull buffs to these officers. But they only apply from the bridge, so this doesn't apply from an engineering position. So if this officer splits with time, that sucks. Hopefully, one of these officers is going to split escort hull on bolt. That'd be a great. But we also get chance with the previous event. We got this officer that's specifically for parts fabrication and a fabricator. This does work from the bridge though. Great, I love it. We went through officer weapons, medics. So these are going to be our yield and our yield times. These are highly recommended that you upgrade as soon as possible to get as much resources as you can out of every single refinery job. These are going to be the big shakers doing all the work. Followed closely by our miners. We can see that I got a lot of these to level 10 and 20, but miners require significantly more attention, or significantly more than medics, right? For medics, I just need, for the labs, I just need 4 for the bridge, and then maybe 4 for each refinery. For miners, I need 6 for all my collectors, 4 for the bridge, 3 for the controllers, and this also includes some of my RE officers that I have for different scenarios. If you're doing some more remote mining, you want to put remote yields on the bridge, stack them, try that. And then for our operators, we kind of already talked about how these split. They can either get two of two of the passive buffs but no ability, or they can split ability, or they can just have super high um, ability, which is this guy. He's got a tier 4 kinetic burst, which is really interesting because he's level 39. What's he going to get? He's got to get a skill. Escort targeting range. So that's interesting. You can't have higher than a level 4 skill. So every officer level 40 is going to get an ability. I did not know that. That's something new that I just learned just now. Huh. So if an officer makes it to level 40 and they are going to get an ability at the end. It's actually kind of crazy because there's no tier 5 ability. And I think that's all that we have. We talked about the base level being uh, established by the rarity of the perk. So, as we will see here, damage H. The damage. Fighter. Okay, so we'll see this guy. Hull, 8%. Hull, 8%, level 60. This one's common. Hull is at 4. That's something. Yeah, I don't have any to tell you, but let's see. These two are 20, so you'll see that they're 2 apart. Yeah, sorry. But we'll see that it just determines the rarity just determines that this number starts at 12%, but the amount that increases each time is the same regardless of rarity. So let's go ahead and touch on the last thing here with officers, and that's abilities, which is specific to the operator class. So we'll see this gear with a plus in the center is going to be our repair ability. This is going to be a pulsar burst. We got ion shot, which is going to disable the enemy for a second and do a significant amount of damage. We have heavy torpedo. This guy just fires a single heavy torpedo. Unfortunately, this is not as significant as the fusion missile, which requires a missile launch pad. This thing is devastating. We have missile barrage. So this is going to fire a volley of missiles. Basically, just all batteries go fire at once at one target. This isn't a burst ability, so it doesn't last a certain amount of time that increased fire rate. This is just one send everything Hail Mary. So this is kind of nice for destroying significant hull targets, but ultimately I prefer like a pulsar burst or even a kinetic burst, something that deals damage for a time frame, an increased fire rate for a time frame, as opposed to just an instantaneous fire rate. This is good for dealing a ton of damage to like a destroyer or something with a missile barrage. But yeah, it's not as great end game as I'd like to. And then I have only a single EMP officer. So this is for mass drivers, and it fires just a regular damage round, but it disables the enemy ship for 5 seconds. So this is kind of great. You fire this, and then you fire another increased duration, like burst or even barrage. Barrage is pretty nice because once you take out the targeting, it can't move, so evasion counts for nothing. And then you get some officers with no active ability. They actually can gain an ability later, but it is unlikely. They'll just tend to split, honestly. So yeah, like we were saying, there's no bonus or benefit to the highest level. To It's really just an increased cooldown rate for a tier 4 versus a tier 3. It's not going to increase the amount of damage. There's no bonus multipliers. So the last thing we're going to talk about is named legendaries and regular legendaries. We kind of touched on this before, but we'll see that I have legendaries. They don't have any text here. These are not named legendaries. Whereas officers like Paragon and Merrimet, they have descriptions and they have set abilities, and they're going to follow these in a certain order. So make sure that you check on the Discord if these officers specifically the Marahat and the Matera brothers. They can, if you bought them earlier this year after they changed the random generation of these officers, then they might not have leveled up in a way that is the best. Or they might have. But just check on Discord. You can figure that out for yourself. Uh, Agnes is also another named officer. So these officers just we can't discharge, can't get rid of, can't do anything with. You're gonna keep them forever, which kind of sucks for some of the other random, for some of the random legendaries because I want rid of some of these officers. I don't need more than three. Um, and I don't even know why I have four A, B, and C. Oh, this one's stuck on another ship that's not um, in my fleet management. But I have another three officers that I'm just not going to do anything with. We need some kind of legendary officers. But this does lead for the kind of randomness that you want to avoid. If you if you do a bunch of I believe I got three of these officers when I did the exchanges for a lot of my epics officers, which I don't mind because I also got two legendary miners and I got a bunch of epic miners or quartermasters. So overall, I made out pretty great on that little legendary run. I also got another one of these. I got this RMY officer from exchanging. But yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching. If you watched this long, I'm sorry that it really took this long to get all this information, but there's a lot of it. So make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll bring it back for some more. Don't forget to do your dailies.